Hello traders, Cousin Vinny coming to you from theclosingprint.com on Sunday, September 20th, 2015. In this video we're going to cover the indices, which are, depending on your subjective trend line depictions, are in ascending patterns with bearish slants going into Yom Kippur, which starts on Tuesday, ends on Wednesday. There is the mantra sell Rosh Hashanah, buy Yom Kippur. That could be playing out as well. You don't have to aspire to it. It's just something to consider. High-low percent on the S&P 1500, still on a sell signal, more so on Friday's close. That's the small caps, mid caps, and S&P 500 that comprise the 1500 composite. Tick and Tick Q both are rising and drifting higher. That's good for sentiment from institutions. NYSE and NASI are also trending higher. Breadth, we've had a smattering of MDDs and MADs punctuated action over the past 2 weeks. CPC is in the green zone. VIX is elevated at 22. That could come down further. It could also push higher. If you're bullish, you want to see that continue to move lower, and if you're bearish, you want to see a pop in CPC. Currencies, US dollar is in the lower end of a sideways range we pointed out for the last couple of weeks, closing below the 200 period moving average on Thursday and Friday. Sorry for the typo. TLT, we got a bounce on Thursday post-Fed. That's the sell S&P, buy bonds mantra. Soros, we noticed, was buying commodities over the last few weeks. Copper and gold are off the lows. Gold looks the best. CL, the crude trade, is holding the 10 EMA, something of a pennant, looking more bullish than bearish. A lot of people out there are bearish on oil. It's holding the 10 EMA and the 20 and the 50 as well. And we have, of course, XBI looking stronger relative to the S&P 500, and XLP, XLU, the defensive sector, is holding up as well. We'll cover some setups in a separate blog post because I want to get outside with the kids and the wife. Starting off with a chart of the SPY, we have an ascending pattern. Depending on where you are drawing your trend lines, we have an ascending pattern, an ascending triangle, you name it. We had a shooting star on Thursday and Friday. We have this volume by price level to deal with, and we did hold off of the 50% retrace from this pivot high down to this pivot low that we put in these closes Monday, Tuesday several weeks ago when we had that waterfall down. Higher volume, of course. Low stow is moving lower. MACD is positive. Histogram, MACD is above its signal line and needs to get back above the zero line if you're bullish. If you're bearish, you want to see this roll over and tick cumulative turn as well. So here's a caveat for those of you who think I'm either bullish or bearish. I'm not. I'm just posting observations. So you can choose to take my comments however you wish, but I can tell you that I will turn bearish if we do in fact lose around the 195 level on volume, additional volume I should say. If we lose this area here, the trend line, and I would start to look for this, this spinning top as a next target, and if that plays out, then a possible move lower. So I'm neither bullish nor bearish going into the week. NASDAQ is pretty strong for the most part. Similar ascending pattern, ascending wedge. Very high volume on Friday. MACD histogram is positive, slow still's turning down, and the number of stocks trading above their 50 period moving average are at 24%. The way I look at this is they are more close to an inflection point for higher than they are for an inflection point lower. That said, we can definitely see this move lower and prices rebound, reflect lower off of the 50 period moving average, which it tested on Thursday on Fed Day. And here, of course, is the Russell, which had a negative day on Friday, holding the 10 period EMA and the 20. Note these two have crossed, as well as the other moving averages on the previous two indices. Slow stow moving lower. MACD is positive, which is a good sign for small caps. and the risk on trade. Do I think we're going to move higher? No idea, but we'll be watching price action nonetheless. Here is a chart of NAMO. When you're thinking any bias, you want to see where breadth is taking us. We are positive and above the zero line, and we have NASI continuing to move higher. Now note it is below the zero line up here in this range. However, it is trending higher. We can look at a different version of this chart, and you can see that quite clearly that it's very negative. However, it is trending higher, and as long as breadth is moving that direction after this drop lower on August 24th, that's a positive sign, not a negative sign. So if you're bearish, you want to see this turn over and this reflect lower, as well as on the NASDAQ advanced decline. If the NASDAQ advanced decline continues to move lower off this trend line, then we could possibly see lower prices on the comp and the NDX 100. Same thoughts for NYMO, which has been positive. When breadth is positive, it's hard to get too bearish. We do have the summation index, NYSI, moving higher as well. If you're bearish, you want to see this turn over and give us a signal. Note this is a 5-period moving average that is trailing the actual summation index. We are positive, and we want to keep an eye on that. Looking at a similar chart on NYSE, we see the summation index for the New York Stock Exchange composite of 2,000 stocks, not 500 like on the S&P. That continues to move higher. So if you're bullish, you want to see this continue higher, and if you're bearish, you want to see this roll over, just like the NASI. And here is the New York Stock Exchange composite. Note we had this inflection on Thursday, moved lower on Friday. MACD still continued to move higher. Focus on the number of major accumulation days versus major distribution days. And we see something of a bullish bias on this particular indicator as well. Doesn't mean we're going to continue to move higher. It's just an observation. Another thing we were focused on with the New York Stock Exchange composite was the Chaikin money flow. Note that it's been positive during this consolidation period versus right prior to the drop-off. It was negative. Just something to consider as well. Note the amount of time that the NYMO histogram is spent above the zero line during this move higher. Again, this doesn't mean that we can't turn lower this week. It's just an observation and something that you should consider in determining your bias for the week ahead. CPC, as we indicated, ended the week at 1.14 in the green zone. More of a slant towards the bullish side than the bearish at present with this one indicator. Note Bollinger Bands are narrowing. Something's going to happen in the very near future on the New York Stock Exchange composite. We just need to keep an eye on price action and determine which direction is more likely than not. TLT had a nice bounce on Thursday as well as Friday. We bought some bonds on Thursday. We added to our position on Friday. So if you think I'm totally bullish, you need to know that I'm also in bonds. So now that we're above the 50-period moving average, we have the 200 overhead, the purple line. STO points to continuation, and MACD is turning. That'll probably go positive this week. Doesn't mean both the TLT and indices can't move in the same direction. Briefly, but for the most part, I looked for bonds as the opposite of the trade for the S&P 500. So if TLT is moving higher, I'm thinking lower on S&P 500. Commodities, as we mentioned in the opening monologue, moving higher, more of a descending pattern here. We have the 200-period moving average overhead, the orange line. We're at the 50-period, and here's the 10-period EMA. Gold is looking even better. As far as commodities, nice little bounce, high or low. It's possible we could take this high out as well. There are catalysts out there that would render gold higher over safety. So keep that in mind as well. Note the volume and indicators are fairly bullish. Here's WTIC. We had a nice move higher, hit the 50-period moving average, created this pennant pattern, little flag. Now we tested the 20-period moving average on Friday. Looks like we're going to continue to move higher. Note we had a 10 EMA, 20 EMA cross, and the 10 EMA is likely to cross the 50, as it looks like it's changing direction as well. So keep that in mind as far as crude is concerned. Many people out there are forecasting $20 crude. It may or may not. We'll watch price action and we'll trade accordingly. As far as sectors are concerned, XBI, the biotech index, continues to puzzle many bears out there. We get above this level right here, right around $80. We should see prices move higher very quickly. The 10 EMA is crossing up through all the moving averages. There are a lot of stocks in this index. If you go to Morningstar and you check out here's Morningstar, the address right here, and you check out the biotech ETF, if you look at these top 25 holdings and chart some of these out, many of these stocks are looking quite bullish actually. So keep an eye on that. Let's take a look at Radius. So if you look at some of these stocks in the index, quite bullish. So keep an eye on the XBI. Many people are bearish, which would be a contrarian signal for us. If that rolls over as well, that'll be something that we will watch in this week. Looking at relative strength for sectors such as defensive names and XLP, note the relative strength moving higher and prices reflecting off of the 200 period moving average on Thursday. Keep an eye on staples. Check out the utility sector as well. So that's going to do it for me for the weekend. This is Cousin Vinny coming to you from theclosingprint.com. In closing, we'll cover the IBD50, which you can see some new names here, and the list ranked by performance last week. Most of them are red. Keep an eye on EPAM. Mikey had a nice post on Saturday. You can check that out on the blog. Note the address. This is case sensitive. It's a Linux server. He had a nice post on EPAM and the particulars that he typically looks at: institutional holders, relative strength, all of the numbers that IBD holds as important when you're interested in buying a new stock. Looking to the week ahead, we're cautiously optimistic, but we do see the possibility of lower. If you're a new trader and you don't know where to start, I just wrote an ebook that covers trading from the standpoint of a mentor-student relationship type of situation. So you might want to check that out. It's available on my blog as well. Take care. I hope this helps, and we'll talk to you on Monday.